All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. I know it's a surprise for today. Here it is. I have the executive of reentry right there, Miss Jackie. But we're here to talk about some reentry things, reentry building blocks. Again, thanks for having us tonight. We know it was a pop up, it was all of a sudden, but we just felt as though that it was very imperative that we just have some type of discussion on this. Again, I'm Keenan Hudson, author of The Unspoken Truth and Life Story. If you didn't already get your copy, feel free to go to KeenanHudson.com. Appreciate everybody that's been supporting. Shout out to Reggie. Shout out to Janai. Shout out to Lisa. Everybody that's been reaching out and supporting me from the past, like I say, few weeks, couple months, whatever the case may be. Thank you. So without further ado, again, Jackie, if you could just go ahead, jump in, and let's just talk about some of the things and the reason why we decided to have this actual live tonight.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Keenan. It's always great to see you and to chat with you about all things reentry. So,
Right.
my name is Jackie Hallberg. I am over in the state of Michigan, and I do reentry initiatives for adults. And then I also do some reentry and a lot of restorative justice work for juveniles. So, it's super important to me to make sure that people know what they're getting into when they have somebody coming home from prison or jail or a juvenile detention facility. So, both the families are supported and the communities are prepared to offer the services that are deserving to people coming home. So that's kind of why I'm jumping on tonight, because I want to talk about it from a service provider area, but I also want to listen to all things Keenan has to say and to support him in a bunch of ways too.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Jackie, so from far as your field, you being in the industry of the reentry field, what are some of the struggles that you see with everyday people that's returned to society? What are some of the struggles that they struggle with?
Oh my goodness. I think you know a bunch of those struggles too, Keenan, but one
Hmm.
of the probably biggest issue is housing, especially if there is some issues with who's in that house. Did they have a conflict with that person before they came out or before they went in? Is the home they're going to be a trigger for any substance concerns or any kind of violence between partners or anything else? So having safe housing has to be top of the line because everything else can be managed so much easier if you know you're going to have a roof over your head, especially in some of our states, Keenan, that get very cold in the cold months and we have
Absolutely.
crazy weather patterns. And thinking
Hmm.
that you might have to go to a mission that might not be in a safe neighborhood, it might not be in a
Hmm.
safe environment.
Hmm.
Thinking about going into a home where maybe your family's not happy that you're out. Maybe they're not happy that you have to move in with them because of parole obligations. And
Hmm.
how is that going to affect the person coming home? And then how is that going to be something that they want to move forward with all their other court requirements and their probation or parole mandates that they have to do if they're not feeling supported at home or they don't have a home that they can call a house a home for themselves. It just
Hmm.
gets so much more difficult. So
Yeah.
everything else, recovery issues, not having enough services in a community, transportation's a huge barrier, having lots of fines and costs through the courts, having child support payments that are still due,
Hmm.
drama or disagreement from other parents of children they may have. Lots of stress that comes along with being out of the community for a while and then coming back in.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And some of the points and the key points that I believe that are like some challenges with re-entry is one, as you mentioned, living. The housing is very important when you're transitioning. Knowing that me going through um, having my first home plan, even though I went to a basement efficiency, I still couldn't have the lease in my own name. Even though the house was provided, because no landlord is going to be able, to put your lease on there because they don't know who you are.
Mhm.
Because again, you got to remember when you're going through the housing project, a lot of times they run in your credit. They want to see, how are you with paying, bills on time and things like that. And truth be told, a lot of people that spent a lot of years behind bars, they have no credit. And the crazy thing is that having no credit is worse than having bad credit. Because if you had bad credit, at least they know who they're dealing with and how to
Mm.
deal with you. So Again, employment is another thing. A
Mhm.
lot of times when people they face things, with whatever charges they may have had, may hinder them from getting jobs.
Yes.
I mean, like even with me, even though um, I had my first job was coming out working at a daycare. I was security and I was maintenance of that daycare. However, later on, when I went to apply for jobs like at the school district and things like that, they actually said like it's just certain charges that they will not hire people on. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And I was thinking like, wow, that's crazy. Well, if I get hired at the daycare and all these other places, how come you guys? But that's just the standard of what goes on. A
Yep.
lot of times, they'll say, okay, yeah, we got rid of the box, the check box of
Are
are
you a felon?
convicted? Are you a felon? And even when they get rid of that, they still ask you inside the
Mhm.
interview. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But again, as I said before, it's always the discretion of the hiring manager.
Yeah.
But I don't say that to discourage anybody. You still keep pushing, until you find something, because that's what I've always done. I've never just stayed stagnant in one place. Word of mouth, say, hey, this place is hiring, that place is hiring. Here it was, again, start from minimum wage. I said before in one of my old videos that putting pride to the side and even starting at minimum wage is something. Something is better than nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And as I said, so in housing, employment, again, and even like you say, family relationships,
Mhm.
that's big as well, because people don't understand that when you go away for X amount of time, life goes on without you.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? Family
Yes.
get older, people have kids, attitudes change,
Mhm.
personalities change, so those past memories that you may have had in the past, they might not have those same memories. They may not remember the things you remember,
Yeah.
because when you went in, everything went on pause and everything was a flash of what you remember before going in.
Yeah.
But years later, people forget things. They got more important or more things to worry about other than the childish things you've been through in the past with them. You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Well,
So
and on the flip side, though, Keenan, is some family members, they can't forget what happened before you went in, and they still think of you as the person that committed a crime to go to prison, where you might have been in prison for the past couple of years, a decade or more, and you may have learned so many new skills and trades, and you might have figured out how to work through anger or work through different things that maybe they still think you're coming back to. So they might be guarded, or they might be more than guarded. They might give you a lot of attitude and treat you like you're not as worthy. And that's one of the things that just blows my mind when somebody is a family member and they treat somebody that they're unworthy. And how can we want to hold our head high and get those
mhm,
jobs and follow all the rules of the community and the
yeah.
system if our own support network doesn't show us that we're deserving of all those things as well?
And that's true too. But at the same time, that one of the biggest factors is it doesn't start when you come back to society.
Yeah.
The mindset starts, when you're incarcerated,
Yeah.
when you have that time on your hands to lay back, listen to music, watch TV, call home, ask for money, and things like that. It starts at that point, because you have the library available to you in certain institutions. You have the law library available. So you have ways that you could plan in which the things you may want to do when you get out. Not saying everything will go according to plan.
Yeah.
See, in prison, everything is predicted. You can pretty much know, okay, when you're going to chow, when we're going to work and things like that. Out here in the world, you can walk out the door and get shot up, or you can walk out the door, catch a flat tire, or
Yeah.
you can walk out the door and be late for work and get fired. So
Yes.
anything is liable to happen.
Yes.
So it's a lot of things that a person has to program in their mind, because they have to remember nobody's going to babysit you. Nobody's going to give you anything, and nobody's going to take care of you. Yes, your support system is key. Yes, your support system is key. But at the same time, what if you don't have a support system?
Yeah.
Yes, you may have to get around people that's like-minded.
Yep.
You may have to get around people that want to win. And then some people may not even want to collaborate or even talk with you. just because they believe you're going to be a burden. But you can't stop there just because you don't have the approval of other people. You know what I mean? So,
You
and
know,
I know and I understand that it can be rough. It can be rough at times, but sticking through it.
yeah.
Because I can remember times I always mention to people like, yo, I mean, it was times where I had to walk in the rain, I had to walk in the snow to get to
Mhm.
work. It was a lot of things before I bought my first car was a 99 Chevy Lumina. You know what I mean? That was my very first car. But it took even time to get there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But everybody want everything right now.
Yes.
They want, instant gratification. They want microwavable things right now.
Yeah.
But trying to keep up with people that have been living for years. They've been living for years, but here it is. You trying to hurry up and y'all got to catch up with them. No, it don't work like that.
Yeah. And
Your
it
race
also
is your race.
depends on the community that they're coming back to, too, Keenan, because if you're coming back to a city that has access to public transportation, you have food
Mhm.
banks if you're hungry, you have an easy access to the court system if you have to talk with your parole agent, you have the resources for different kind of like employment development agencies or staffing facilities. It has a
Mhm.
lot of more opportunity. If you come back and you're in a rural community, there's
Mhm.
not necessarily going to be an Uber or a bus route. And if your
Mhm.
family is either not wanting to support you or they're just non-existent and you have to come
Mhm.
back to a mission or you have to come back to a distant relative that you hardly even know, how are you
Yes.
going to be able to be as successful not having access to that? So
Yeah.
I talk
Yeah.
a lot with Chris, who is in Tennessee doing a lot of reentry work, and
Okay.
his whole county area, there's so much rural there that it's like people forget, people think people are just coming back from prison and going into big cities, and they're going into cities that have all these resources. What about the
Wow.
people that might have a 2-hour drive to their parole office?
Mm.
What if there's no staffing agencies because
Mhm.
there's no foundries, there's no factories you can work in, hardly any
Yeah.
McDonald's around?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and that's a big factor. Like you said, some places may have transportation, and then most times, a lot of institutions won't release you not unless you're going to either your
Mhm.
home county or a suitable place to whereas okay, even if it is a halfway house, they'll still have some type of form of transportation where you could probably get around,
Yeah.
which is understandable. But it's up to the individual to put that footwork in.
Yeah.
They're
Very
expecting things to be handed to you. There's individuals where, they spoke to me, they asked me about the housing, soon I'm gonna be launching, a project, for the nonprofit with transitional housing, but that's another story. But what I try to tell them is, they try to say, yeah, well, if I had this money, I know what to do, and this, that, and the third. But here it is, somebody that never held 5 or 10,000 in their hands before, thinking that they're going to know what to do with that type of money. I keep telling them it does not work that way. You wouldn't know what to do with it because you never handled it before. And then you just came from an environment where you handled a lot of pennies. The
Mhm.
most you probably get from a job in there every month is $50 a month. But you had no responsibilities. You didn't have to pay a light bill. You didn't have to pay a gas bill. You didn't have to pay a water bill.
Yeah.
These are responsibilities. You know what I'm saying? You didn't have to pay rent. You didn't have to pay a mortgage.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So you're dealing with on a bigger scale now. So when you deal on that bigger scale and you think you'll have a handle of it, before you know it, you're actually going to lose yourself.
Yeah.
So again, a part of it is, like I said, again, the mindset, like you said, support
Mhm.
system, the circle that you're hanging around, it plays a big factor.
Yeah.
Just like when a lot of people do come up for parole. When you go before this parole board, you're before ex-judges, lawyers, DAs. These people on there going to cross-examine you to see if you're going to shoot some bull crap over
Yeah.
their heads.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if anybody's in their right mind, throughout your whole stay, of course, you should have done something to show that you were able to be reformed. But to come out here with no plan, again, things are always subject to change.
Yep.
But if you just have no plan, you'll always return to the vomit that you came from.
Yeah. And if you didn't take
Mhm,
access to all of the educational opportunities once you are away, and if
mhm,
you've had learning disabilities, if you've struggled with, um, not being able to understand really like schoolwork type of a thing. And then you're told that, oh, you've got to get your GED, you've got to get a diploma, and it has to be done immediately. It's
Mhm.
one more barrier. And then what we haven't talked about, Keenan, is if you're coming back to the community and you're a parent. So depending on what your crime, you may not even be able to be around your child, or maybe you can't be around the mother or the other parent of that child. And so there might be a no contact clause or something like that in your parole agreement. How
Mhm.
is that going to be for you if you know your kid is in the community, you want to see them and you can't access them? Is that going to be an instant violation on your parole? What if that kid of yours was 4 or 5 when you went into prison, and you come out of prison and now they're 11, 12,
Mhm.
13? Even if they got to see you on a video screen, or if they got to visit you in the visitation room, it's not the same as, okay, mom or dad now are trying to tell me when to turn off my TV and when to not play on my cell phone, and they haven't even been around for the last 6 years. And sometimes that kid might have been the man or the woman of the house while that other parent was gone. And then you're coming in and you're changing that whole system, even if you do get to go into the same home where your children on. But reality, a lot of people get out of prison and they have multiple children out there. And so
Mhm.
trying to figure out how to be a parent and how to figure out, I've missed out on how many years of my child's life, and maybe their education is even higher than what you have. It becomes a real struggle for a lot of people. And so the more they can be open and honest with some of the issues that they are struggling with, some of the things that maybe didn't go so smooth in the past, the
Mhm.
easier it's going to be to build their reentry plan while they're trying to adapt and adjust to things. Or they're going to just want to be like, I don't need your support, I can do it all myself. And
Exactly.
then what's going to
Mhm.
happen, Keenan?
And that's kind of and that's good that you just said that, because a lot of times, I will admit, I've seen people that, because I don't have children, but people that did have children, they did have like certain little programs that they will give them,
Hmm.
to prepare them for, to say, hey, when you come out, things may not be the way you expect them to be when you're handling your children. But as you mentioned, some may come out, oh, I don't need your help. I know what I got to do, this, that, and the third. That's the problem right there. A lot of people believe that, oh, they don't need help from anyone.
Yeah.
Oh, I know I can figure this thing out on my own. When that's not the case at all. And that's one of the biggest troubles that people fall in each and every time. Like, here it is, you're trying to teach and give advice from an experience that you may have been through or that you may have experienced, but they shooting it down as if you haven't been through it.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm gonna figure out. Well, you figure it out, but it's on your hands now. Like, don't ask me for any more advice, because now you think you know everything. So only thing I can do is just dust my feet and keep it moving.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like you said, that plays a big part too. Like you say, people coming home to children, they feel as though they have to support them. They want to get their children the best clothes and the Jordans, and they can barely afford it. But my thing is, if you were locked up and you couldn't buy any of the stuff, how about, if you come home, try to get some things that you can afford.
Yeah.
But again, it's a materialistic world nowadays, to whereas people want to show what they have, and no, if it's not this, it's not approved by other people. So a lot of it has to do with adult peer pressure as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we relate to juvenile peer pressure too, but got to do with adult peer pressure. We worry about what people think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and just the trauma of what so many people that have been incarcerated or are incarcerated in went through before incarceration, so
Mhm.
much trauma. And then coming into a locked facility where there's a lot of trauma you either witnessed or have happened to you. And then you're told to come out of jail or prison and make all the perfect decisions when your brain may
Mhm.
still be in survival mode. It may be
Mhm.
stopped at whatever age you had that initial trauma at. And if your brain development is still in the early teen years, the late tween years, and you're being
Mhm.
told that, oh, why don't you have your social security card? And why haven't you gotten a job yet? And why haven't you gotten your education? And you're
Yeah.
basically like, I don't even know what my name is right now because I've been called a number, or I've only been called my last name for so long. So
Mhm.
it's like, how can we expect people to just, oh, you're going to be so successful, and if you don't get successful on the first day, then boom, I got an attitude with you, or I'm going to
Mm.
you.
Yeah, you're right. You got a good point there. And but and at the same time, as you just mentioned, people don't have their social security card. They may not have their birth certificate. Oh, they may not. But I'm not going to lie. From the institutions that I've been in quite a few, especially in Pennsylvania, and even extending down to Virginia. All of them had situations where you can apply for your social security card. You can apply for your birth certificate. Now, I'm not saying that, all prisons want to see the reform, come out victorious. I'm not saying it. But for the most part, for what I've seen, they provide you the opportunity to put the footwork in to get that, those vitals that you need. Like who can live in a world without a social security card or a birth certificate?
Yeah.
Or an ID card. They give you all. I had all this before I returned to society. But you have to put the work, and nobody's just going to say, "Oh yeah, here, let me hold your hand." No, because when you get out here, nobody's going to hold your hand. But again, I believe I always stand back to this: the change starts within.
Yeah.
It can't start out here, because you get out here, it's a scary game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, Jack? It's pretty tough.
Reentry should start day one, because life is tough for all of us. I mean, life is tough. I mean, especially after this COVID world, there's still a lot of political tension between people, and there's jobs that have been shut down and people laid off, and there's other jobs that people are doing that they're not treated very well at. And then we had so many people that have had health issues, or they've lost loved ones because of all the changes. So life is hectic for a lot of us that don't have a criminal history that they have to worry about. Is it going to be written on my report? Do I have to go check in? Is somebody going to pull up my information? So it's like, if reentry can't start on day one, or at least way before the last day, the chances of it being more and more successful are just a little worse. So I get what you're saying. They got to put in the work. Every one of us has to put in work, but if you don't know what work needs to be done, and you do just assume, I go to jail or prison and boom, everything's going to be normal right when I walk out the door. We need to make sure that our prison facilities, our jail facilities, have the staffing and the support services available to walk alongside, to educate. And then if you're not willing to put in the effort after you know what you need to do to be successful, to at least get your documentation in order, then you're going to just put yourself 10 more steps back. And that's where I worry so much that if people don't have that door kind of opened on, like, this is where you start, why would they open other doors to be even more and more successful? So I definitely appreciate the facilities that are on top of that, and they're making sure that they have people paired up with people before release so that they can have all that kind of documentation. But I don't always know if it's as easily accessible as it sounds like it was for you. So I'm so glad you were able to get out with it.
Yeah. And again, and like you said, and I totally agree with you. And like you said, I don't know if every institution has it, like far as in other states, but as far as I know that you can, if you can write a letter, if you're able to get access to any type of postal service, which all prisons probably still have, you can get to a vital office. You can send out for these things, but if your mind is focused on playing poker, all day on the block, if your mind is focused on playing chess and Scrabble, it's okay to have leisure activity. I'm not saying it's not. But again, if it's not geared towards, hey, what's going to better me as a person, my self-development, nothing is going to matter. Because I always base it around, again, the domains of life. What education have you been doing? What financial planning have you been doing? Your environment. Do you plan on going back to the same environment? The health. How is your health? You see me, I gained about 200 pounds. And I know I got, I'm keeping up on it, because I came out 235 and I blew up to 400, so it's like, whoa, like that's a whole person. But sometimes the health, because things, when you stop working and you doing other things that's enjoying life, that stuff will catch up with you if you don't keep that the proper balance. Again, health, your personal development. What are you doing to for yourself to grow, learn in different areas of life? Your recreation, again, getting out, having fun, doing things, to stimulate your mind. A lot of, might want to go to a bar. You might want to chill, whatever the case may be, that keeps you out of trouble. Again, spirituality is a big thing in your relationships, family, people you deal with. All these things plays a big factor
And even
in
things
life.
like being mindful of what's going on in your body, instead of getting ourselves so busy or so like, oh my gosh, I missed out on all of this, so I got to do everything today. But
Mhm.
how can you make a safe re-entry? And when I'm saying re-entry, I'm saying into who you are as a human, because you're not the person you were in before you were
Mhm.
incarcerated. You're not even the same person you were incarcerated, because it's so different. And that mindset, sometimes it can literally switch just literally minutes after walking out, or maybe
Yeah.
it takes a week or two, maybe it takes a month. For some people, it can take years for them to totally realize that they do have so many opportunities ahead of them, and that there are so many different services and opportunities from employers that are starting to say, wow, why were we so concerned if they did a felony 10, 20 years ago? What about who they are now, where they're focused on now? How
Mhm.
can we play to their strengths? Because if you've always done stuff that you hated and people just said that, oh, you just only deserve to do this kind of stuff, why would you know that you can? I mean, Keenan, you're a musician. You weren't a musician before you went into prison.
Mhm.
You
No.
learned. Now that's one of your passions. And it's like, think about all the passions that people that are incarcerated in our juvenile detentions, in our prisons, in our jails, that they don't even know what kind of potential in actual skills and talents and creativity that
Mhm.
they have, because they hadn't really harnessed them. So trying to figure out how that they can get to just know themselves again and not think
Right.
that they're just this image that they had before is so key, so important. Now I noticed we're getting some comments in, Keenan. Should we address them?
Okay.
Because
Do we
time is
have some? I'm
flying.
sorry.
Time
Yeah, I
is
must have
flying.
overlooked them by accident. I'm so sorry. Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry. Yeah, we do have some comments. Okay. Okay, Mr. Joseph right here. It says, I teach special education and have worked in several alternative educational environments. I have seen juvenile students struggle with reentry and adapt to classroom environments as well.
Oh, I'm
Yes,
gonna I'm gonna jump on that so quick,
please,
because I did
please.
4 years of school counseling, and that was for, young kids, so they hadn't been in a locked environment yet or anything, and it was still hard for so many of them to adapt to, "You need to sit down, you need to listen, you need to do this." Well, then you get taken out of your home, you come back, and you're still supposed to do all the things that kids are still doing that maybe you didn't do before.
Mhm,
Kudos to you for doing special education work in general,
mhm.
because we need it, but we
Yes.
need to make sure the culture of those of us that are in schools, those of us that are working at all levels of school, welcome kids back. Because if they're just getting those dirty looks, or I've had kids tell me that their teachers are just like, I never expected you to do that kind of stuff. Now I don't know if I want you in my class, or things like that. Come on.
Mhm,
Come on.
mhm,
What does
mhm.
that do to development? So we've got to be supportive and welcoming. Of course, if there's extra struggles, we need to make sure there's the services in place. If there are safety risks, we do need to be very aware of that, but we don't need to be looking over their shoulder, treating them like that they are not worthy of coming back into this building or this classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree because I had the same issues. Well, even though I was more of a classroom person, I was more of a like you see some of the certifications I may have behind me and things like that. But at the same time, I still was thinking about the cares of the world. I was still thinking about, hey, what's going to happen the next day or this day and that, and what's going to happen in court. So it's a lot of things that's going on in a person's mind, that they can't, they won't be able to focus. When I was a kid, I had, I was diagnosed with ADHD. So I couldn't keep still. They gave me Ritalin to try to calm me down, but that decreased my appetite. Didn't want to eat. So it was a lot of different backfires with different things. And like you said, everybody comes for different culture sects, different backgrounds, the way people function, But like she said, kudos to you. Thank you for teaching, with the special education and juveniles as well. Thank you. So we have another one here, Mr. Edward. Says re-entry must include the right to banking and savings, secure credit, and Social Security credit hours for work during incarceration. The
Mhm.
loss of these equal property and recidivists. Um, and he's right. He's
Yes.
right. It should, but a lot of that's not taught. Like, and this is the crazy thing. A lot of it's not taught in there in prison, but a lot of it's not taught out here in the world either.
Yeah.
When you look in schools and you look in a lot of different educational places, the only way you're going to learn about finance is if you go and say, hey, this is what I want to major in, or hey, this
Yeah.
is a course I want to take, or hey, this is a credit course I want to take. Like I didn't understand credit until I had to come out and understand, somebody showing me some of the ropes. I didn't know that your credit could take you places where your money can't. That's why I tell a lot of individuals that I help, to transition out here now. That again, going back to if I threw $10,000 in your head, you wouldn't know what to do. You think, oh yeah, I'm on top of the world. But if you don't have credit, that's not going to get you nothing. And it goes just like that.
Yeah.
So what you gonna say, Jackie?
And it's a basic human need now. We do everything. We even rent to people based on credit scores. We give just bonuses on car insurance on what your credit score is. I mean, come on. It's basically a basic human need because at least in America, we have developed a society that certain people deserve certain things and other people have to fight like hell to get to those. And why can't that just be a basic human need when it is needed in almost every area? So I also love how Edward shared about the whole building for Social Security while you're inside. I mean, so many people are working. I just heard today of a gentleman that is literally getting $60 for working an entire month in a prison.
Yeah.
And think about all the other charges that come out of that $60 a month. And it's like, how are you ever going to have anything when you get out, let alone if you do get out and you're 10 or 20 years away from retirement, but yet you worked for the state that you live in, doing sometimes pretty difficult labor inside a prison, why isn't that considered? And so I appreciate you reaching out and saying that, Edward. It's super important to consider. And I would love to see states start to do that and see what kind of response it's given. I think that's pretty cool.
I agree. Absolutely. Okay. Brandon McQueen here. How do you plan to help the reentry community? Wow. Do you want me to jump on that? Or you want to go, Jackie?
You go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, well, so one of the ways that I'm going to be, like, I already do a lot of community service as it is. I do a lot of outreach and things like that. But as far as my own personal nonprofit and things that I'm going to be launching, I'm actually gearing towards the reentry housing. However, even though it's the reentry housing, I'm also going to have a service attached to it, which is probably going to be more so of the programming. Yes, I have different, things that I've been working on right here on my desk. But of course, that comes with the process. Just making sure that, hey, these transitional strategies are going to be relatable, from the things that, of course, that I've experienced and you've experienced, the transition, almost step by step. Like, hey, everybody's facing the similar thing when they're coming out. There may be different, arenas, that we're facing, different struggles that we're facing, but is there common, similar struggles that we're facing together? So again, that's how I'm going to be giving back to the reentry community. It's the transitional housing, because I know that's one of the top issues for people returning to society. They can't find any type of housing.
Yes. Yeah.
Despite if a person has a certain type of crime, despite, if their own family don't want them to come to their house, but it's to show like, hey, listen, this is how transition is going to work, especially if you don't want to be in a halfway house for the rest of your stay.
Yeah, that's huge. So I love that. Thank you for even having that on your radar, let alone you're a little bit more than just thinking about it. So Keenan, I love that and support that. For me personally, I do work in the reentry initiative. We actually have a jail program for people that are currently incarcerated in jail. We are one of the only programs around that actually do day programming for those that are currently housed in the jail. They get to leave the jail facility, come to our office, have a ton of different opportunities. They get to do college work. They get to do literacy work. They get to work on their GED if they want to. They get life skills. They get different therapeutic interventions. They get to learn how to tie ties and how to balance a budget and doing some financial literacy and such. And then at the end of the day, they do have to go back to the jail. So we're different than like a work release program because we are not low-level offenses. We can have pretty intense offenses that are able to be referred to our program. It is only felony conviction. So it's a pretty big deal letting them come and go back. And we would love to have this spread across our state and then across much more of the country as well, because it's a great opportunity to start that reentry piece early. But the thing I'm personally doing more than any of the programs I've been in, I've done prison reentry where I used to go in and work prior to parents getting released from prison to really work with them on the family side with their kids. The biggest thing I do, regardless of what I'm doing, is I build relationships. And huge, whether you're still incarcerated, whether you've been out for 10 years or more, I mean, you're a human. You're a human. And that is something that just can't be, okay, we're going to build relationships with people that have no, because I mean, granted, I've only been inside where I've been able to leave at the end of the day, Keenan, but those that are inside can smell somebody that's sincere pretty much a mile or two away, can't you?
Oh, yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
not stuff you can just say, okay, I got to act like I really like this people, even though I'm terrified they're going to do what they did to get in prison to me. I mean, come on. I had so many police officers tell me before I started going into the prisons to do some groups, you know what they're going to do to a woman locked in a room with them, right? And I'm like, really? 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 Have you been a woman locked in a room with people that are considered
Uh,
prisoners? I mean, come on. So it really depends on the relationship development, and relationships can go so far. And I'm going to trust you until I can't trust you. And I know that you're not going to trust me until you can trust me. And so understanding that and building that dynamic is huge. No matter if you're teaching education courses, if you're
mhm.
living with that person, if you're in the neighborhood with them, it's really important to really care that they're another living, breathing human being.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Jackie. You really expounded a lot on that.
I
Thank you
could
for.
talk way too much. Sorry,
Yeah,
Keenan.
no, it's okay. It's great insight for
Of
everybody, all the
course.
listeners. We appreciate y'all again for even coming out, listening and gravitating towards this talk of the reentry with Keenan and Jackie. Again, Joe mentioned here, he said a lot of public schools do not have the resources or personnel that can support juveniles who are incarcerated and need to be reintegrated back into regular environments. Yeah, and that's true. But I like so once a person on my insert of my book here, his name is Hildebrand Pelzer. He actually was the principal for Pennypack House School at the House of Correction in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And when he came, he actually had a vision specifically for juveniles that are incarcerated. He had a vision and a passion to help them because he's seen a lot of potential. One of the individuals was me, which he had seen a lot of potential in, and he invested in me a lot. But like you said, a lot of people that are going upstate nowadays, at young ages, a lot of these schools that they go to, upstairs GED classes, they don't really focus on, I've seen some people go up as a kid and not get their GED until years later.
Yeah.
Until when the parole board said, "Hey, you have to get your GED," you'd be surprised how many people we take for granted, like that, literally cannot read or write.
Yeah.
A lot of individuals are illiterate.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So that deals with a lot of pride in itself.
My
So,
county specifically, Keenan, we have ridiculously high um,
mhm,
rates of illiteracy. And when you're thinking, okay, how am I going to run machinery at a job if I can't
mhm,
read what I'm doing? How am I going to take my prescription medication if I can't read the bottle of it? Oh,
mhm,
but yeah, I have to get this GED when I don't even know how to start. So, I've worked with
mhm,
a lot of people that said, I don't need my GED. I can't believe my probation officer's making me do it. And they work with a teacher or an instructor that just cares, and they make it a little fun, and they give them some encouragement that it
mhm.
might suck. It might take you a couple times to pass, but you're going to pass. And let's figure out what you need to be successful. That makes the difference. So, yes, schools struggle. There's a lot of schools, especially some low poverty or high poverty, low income schools in inner cities that don't have the resources. But guess what? They have human capital, which is way more important. So, teachers and administrators and the lunch
Mhm,
workers and the bus drivers and the maintenance workers that see those kids in that school can make or break what they need in additional to somebody treating them like they deserve to be back in that school and that people care about them. So that's the number one thing. And that's not something that costs money. Maybe you got to train somebody a little bit more in empathy, but it's something that's so important. And then doors just start opening and teachers learn learn to teach a different way and make it easier. And then there's other resources and different community services that can be connected that maybe the school didn't know they could come into the school to offer those services free of charge, or maybe nobody they said no before to services because they didn't want people to come in and see what was going on in their school buildings. I've seen that happen and hear about that happen. So there are things to do, but yes, it's a struggle, and don't even get me started on how much more money public schools deserve to have, because I don't care where you're living, you deserve to have a safe environment, a safe building to be able to learn and be able to have the same opportunities as kids in other districts that have it with not even asking for any services.
Absolutely, absolutely. How would you like to read the next comment there, Jackie?
All right. During incarcerated and certainly intermediately afterwards. How can people not have a social security? OMG. Seriously. Like, everything about this human. You've given them a number. You've given them the name. Their blood type when they're in prison. All this stuff. And you're trying to say you don't have their social security number?
I will say, as far as, like I say, Pennsylvania, I can attest that we did have, like, if you had your social security card or if you sent out for it,
sure,
it'll be placed in your jacket. So once you do leave, it'll be handed to you with your other vitals, birth certificate, social security card, identification.
Good.
So other places, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a possibility. Like, every state is different.
Yeah.
So that's a huge thing right there.
Well,
but
and if you left your documentation with possibly like a partner, maybe they divorced you while you were incarcerated, maybe they left state and your stuff went in the garbage.
But you can always obtain it, though.
You can, but a lot of people don't think they need to because they think it's waiting for them the minute they walk out. It's supposed to be in the same box they had it.
But that's why I encourage you, if you're incarcerated right now,
get another one.
You expect somebody to have all your vitals and things like that, your documentation in order. No, you need to make sure it's confirmed that it's in your jacket. If it's not in your jacket right now, you need to contact your counselor or whoever is over getting all your documentation together, and order your birth certificate, order your social security card, and order your identification. Because without those things, you cannot survive out here in this world. I'm just letting you know that right now.
Yeah.
So jump on that. All right, Jackie. We have Johnny Howard. It says, this is a time to learn. Listen. Yes, sir. Thank you so much for saying that, Mr. Johnny. We appreciate you. All right. He said, okay. He also said life experience.
Yeah.
All right. He also mentioned, he said, this to know, he said, what they're talking about. Yes, sir. We're talking some good stuff here. I know we're going on 45 minutes, but we just got to admit, we might going to go over an hour. We thought it was going to be 30 minutes, but it's pretty good. It's really good. Here she goes, Mr. Joseph. He said, amen. Thank you for addressing. Schools are quick to segregate those students. Absolutely. Yes. They would definitely try to separate or say, oh, that person's not going to be nothing. And it's like, okay, so what if one person, you know what I mean, or 5 people inside this class, are struggling? Yeah. What people should say is, oh, forget the other 29. Let me focus on these 5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a lot of things like that.
Again, how do you welcome a student back if they've been gone for a month, 6 months, they were taken out of school for an entire school year, but they're coming back to that school, or maybe they're coming back to a different community. They've never been in the school. Don't make them just walk in the door and figure it all out and not have a network. Have that student come in early, have them come in the day before, or don't make them go to first hour. Have them come in and get to meet the principal, the dean of student, the school secretary. Let them know where the counselor's office is. Let them know that they're happy that they're in that building. If that student is in the building, the chances of that student being somebody that's not going to commit another crime, it just increases every single day they come back to that building. I don't care if a kid is a little bit tardy. If they had to walk in that snow to get to school, like Keenan, you had to do to some of your jobs, that meant that they want to be there. So don't you dare shame those kids and treat them like they're not worthy or that they're going to get in trouble again and things like that. Because if you tell me I'm a troublemaker, I'm probably going to be the best troublemaker you've ever seen, So welcome those kids. And I could preach about that for hours, Keenan, so I'll get off that. But it's like, there is so much to do to just be kind to other humans, especially kids.
Mr. Edwards, he mentioned something here. It says, These are barriers that the state and the federal government put up around the rights of people who are incarcerated by denying the right to bank and savings accounts, the right to utilize personal
Mhm.
security credit, and receiving Social Security credit for work done while incarcerated. It says these barriers create poverty. Absolutely.
Yep.
Um, he also said money banked and saved in rent and transportation. A credit usage equal to credit score and history, which is purchasing power. If you're not getting points for prison pay, you lose Social Security benefit. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of different things, like you said, that we can definitely expound on about that. Like I said, me coming home, I went away 15 years old. Excuse me. Of course, I wasn't doing anything with my credit in there, but when I came out here, I had to start with a little secure credit card. You know what I mean? But then, of course, you got to understand the ingredients that build that. So, like I say, so part of, again, the program that I'm going to be coming up with is going to be touching on some of that. But you make a good point, Mr. Edwards. We appreciate you sharing.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right.
And I just want to follow up on what he said about it creates poverty. Guess what? Some
Mhm.
people make money off of other people being in poverty.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
we could have years of a discussion on that,
Oh,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
very frustrating.
It's a $1 billion business going on
It
here,
is.
but it's up to us to wake up. But
It
yeah,
is. So,
yeah,
Mr. Keenan, I gotta say, all the people that have commented so far are mostly in your house. I mean, they're people that walk your walk and they've connected with you. So if I'm not connected with you, please reach out. I love to talk about
sure.
this stuff. Please
Yeah,
do that. But Mr. Matt M. Love that was just up there, I've
yeah, yeah.
got to give him a shout out because this
Okay.
man preaches the fight about social justice and community corrections. He speaks up for those that have been exonerated, and he's not somebody that needs to. He could be doing anything he wants to right now. It's not that
Uh,
he's doing it through a job or something like that. So thank you, Matt, for being here. I'm so glad to see you. And I love your spirit for so many people that are facing such a corrupt judicial system.
wow, it'd be good to bring him on the show one of these days when we
Yes,
just,
it would.
we'll definitely get on here and we'll share it because, information is valuable. I know all of us, we have, different points of views. We all come from different backgrounds. We all advocate for different things. So why not share the information amongst each other, and share it to others, throughout these platforms. And this is not about leveling up or being better than anybody. No, it's about some actual struggles that people go through
Oh,
that
yeah.
we all can learn from. So we really appreciate that.
And,
Thank you, Mr. Matt.
I've already learned stuff on here. I tend to think that I've
Yeah,
submersed myself in this so much over the years, but just hearing Edward's words about really thinking about not just credit, but really thinking
yeah.
about what is the investment in their financial needs going
Mhm.
forward. Everybody that gets out of prison is going to want to retire as well, right? We don't want people that are in their 80s and 90s doing jobs that they shouldn't have to be doing just because they didn't get to count their work time while they were incarcerated. And like
Yeah,
I said, some of the jobs in prison are some very difficult work, and they're
yeah.
getting cents on the what day maybe. And it's like, whoa, what are we setting people up for? But again, I don't want to get on my high horse too much about poverty and how much people like to make money off the judicial system and all that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We can always talk about that. Definitely another time. That's not an issue. We'll definitely get on that. But I know once we get onto that rabbit trail, it's going to be a whole nother discussion, a whole nother couple hours. But it's all good. It's all good. Like Mr. Everett says, I'm a former juvenile lifer without parole. I've served 43 years. Wow. Welcome home, man. We definitely salute you
And
for
look,
that.
look at that degree behind his name, Keenan.
Yeah, wow.
Look at that. He went
Wow.
into social work. 43 years, Edward. You could hate the system. You could hate the idea of wanting to help
But he
other
chose
people
to
because
give
so
back.
much of your world was gone. And look at you helping other people
Yeah,
and
yeah,
learning, expanding your own brain. I mean, that's what the world
yeah,
needs is we need to know
yeah.
what is your talent, what is your passion? And apparently your passion is making change and getting the word out and helping support others in some capacity.
That's
So
it.
so excited for you. Thank
Yes,
you.
yes. We really appreciate that. Like I said, a lot of people, look how many people, like you said, that may have been down for life and they've come out, come home and not given back, forgot where they come from. But then again, I can't even say a lot of them forgot where they come from. A
Yeah.
lot may be intimidated.
Oh,
I've seen many people out here that I was incarcerated with literally talk on Facebook, or I'm thinking about ending my life. I don't want to live no more. People say it's going to be better, but it only get worse. This and the third, but here it is, having that strength mentally. Again, that mental game, being in prison, a lot of it, I believe like 95% of it is mental. That's just period. Because you could lose your mind easily. I've seen a lot of people lose their mind, not come out sane, growing, locks in their head and running miles in the cell. It's so much. But yeah, I'm so sorry. I know I'm getting off sidetrack.
No, it's such good stuff. I mean, we could change the criminal justice world if we were in charge together, Keenan, couldn't we? We'll just join everybody in the comments, have them jump on our task force. There we go.
And that's what we can do. Just if anybody wants to be on this live and feels though that you have some potential, of sharing some valuable information, please, inbox, like I say, me, Ms. Jackie. Let us know. I'll put her name back up here on the chat. Just to let us know. We'll come up here and we'll elaborate on all these things. Because again, it's information that people has to hear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I understand, yes, I did, publish a book. And a lot of the things, and one of the gears, and just to put this out there, one of the reasons why I published the book the way I did, having statements in there, having, affidavits, because these are the things that are not being told to a lot of not just today's youth, but people in general.
Yeah.
This is what really happens in life. That when you go through the system, when you have so-called friends, when they turn on you and how things really unfold, the average person is not going to reveal a lot of details that I put in this book.
Yeah.
But
it's a great book. I've read it and I got my mom to read it too. I mean, if a 75-year-old woman can like it and be like, wow, more people need to read that. I'm not just saying it because I like Keenan, but his book is really important because he's living in the now. I mean, he was 15 years old and sent to adult prison, and look at him thriving now. Look at him giving back in so many capacities and finding his talents and everything. And I think part of your book, Keenan, also gives some hope. It reminds families some of their role in things, the community some role, but it really talks about, look at all the things you can do. And did you see Mr. Matt said that he would vote for both of us to be in charge?
Let me throw it up on the comments. I vote for both. Oh, we appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate it, Mr. Matt. Yes. That'd be great. And Jack, I see that we're narrowing down to like the 8-minute mark.
Yeah.
But it's up to you. Free fall. If you want to ask any questions, anything, you guys can throw it in the chat.
Yeah.
But we definitely are going to be ending it at in about 8 minutes, which is 8 o'clock my time. But
8 o'clock my time too, thankfully. So, one of the cool things, Keenan, that I think about is that, Brandy's question about what are you doing for reentry? I think that's something every human needs to think about, not just because you have somebody that's currently incarcerated or because you have a past where you were inside. It really should be because almost every single one of us has a friend, a family, a neighbor that has some kind of a felony record. They've been inside. Maybe they're, have been inside for a very long time, or the thought that each and every one of us humans is one decision away from going into prison ourselves. And why can't we work together? Why can't we all have that commitment to say, not only are we focused on reentry, but we're focused on trying to make our community safer, healthier, stronger. When we feel safe, we don't necessarily want to hurt people. We don't want to break the laws as much. When we're not feeling safe, when our food isn't on the table, when we don't know if people love us, when people have hurt us, of course we're going to hurt back because that's survival mode. So how can we make communities safer when we know there are very rich, wealthy people in control of certain areas that love when we fight over each other and we are in poverty and we have struggles and we aren't necessarily educated, or we don't think that we deserve to own a business or get a degree or anything like that. So how can we as individual humans work to make our own community safer when more and more people are putting fences up? They don't know the neighbor's name, let alone their kids' name. We don't want to help. I've seen people pull down their shades when there's a fight outside because they don't want to be considered a witness and have their name in a police report. how can we make the community safer by being nice humans and by giving people hope that they don't have to live in a world where they've got to fight for their world and possibly do criminal activities.
Wow. Yeah. That's very good right there, Jackie. And that's it. Like you said, creating a safe environment, cleaner environment. These are great things, that we have to, take into consideration. As you said, many people, people that are safe, without having to look over their back, they don't go out starting the trouble. It's always the people that are not secure with themselves. They're not doing as good. They feel as though they got to take it out on everybody else. Well, if that's the case, you know, it has to be some self-evaluation. You know what I mean? And I encourage that for individuals that may feel as though that there is no help. There's always going to be hope.
Yes.
You just got to believe that
Yeah.
there's hope. You got to seek out the resources,
Yep.
seek out the individuals that's going to be like-minded with you, seek
Yeah.
out the individuals that are maybe doing better, but you got to seek out the individuals to probably connect. Now, don't get it twisted. Now, there's been plenty of people that I've tried to connect with, whether it be nonprofit level or whatever the case may be. Um, some may not want to be connect with me for
Yeah.
what reason, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I still can allow that to hinder me or become bitter towards them just because,
Yep.
that door was closed. May not have been a
Keep
door you
looking.
were supposed to walk through in general.
Yeah, keep looking. There are some great humans in this world. Hi, Eric. It's so nice to meet you. I love that
Hey,
you
Mr.
put your
Eric.
podcast information on there. That is a great
All right.
title, isn't it, Keenan?
Indeed. Where's he at? Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that.
Oh, where's he at? What did he say? Right.
Success after lockdown.
Okay. What did he say? You want me to read that? Okay. It says, I would love for you to follow me on my podcast called Success After Lockdown on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, and Apple Music. You said, I believe you will find my podcast educational, informative, and impactful. Oh, we appreciate that. Definitely going to check that out. We
Yeah.
shout you out, Mr. Benson. We ask that you share this podcast as well. Share it with your page, share it on your YouTube, share it on your Facebook. Everybody, like and share. It's okay to press the like button. This just shows you support. You don't got to comment. It's okay. But it's okay to show a little support and say, hi, wow. Even though I didn't tune in the whole thing, I heard the little things that you guys were saying. We appreciate you sharing that information. It doesn't cost much.
And reentry shouldn't be a competition. It shouldn't be a political issue. It should be a life issue. It faces each and every one of us in some capacity. And let's work together. Let's get the word out. Let's listen to each other's information. Let's learn from each other, and great things can happen. And hopefully we will see no more childhood life convictions, and we will see less people that are doing crimes that even need to have such long sentences. So I know some people tell me I'm Pollyanna, thinking everything's going to be great, but how can I not? I see the potential in humans, and why can't other people? So yes, it's a crazy world out there, but there's so much hope, Keenan. Just like you said, there's so much better. Thank you so much for all these awesome comments and questions, everybody. Keenan and I are we don't even know if anybody's going to jump on with us. We might just be talking to each other, but other people will hear it later because this is
they're on. Yeah, Mr. Mel Wells. Shout out to Mr. Mel Wells for One Day at a Time. He does a lot for the community here in Philadelphia.
Yes.
Ms. Jackie, I advise you to definitely great connection here in the city. They just had like big block party. They do a lot of different things. But appreciate you, Mr. Mel Wells, for shouting us out there. Look forward to connecting with you soon.
Yes.
Mr. Eric Bedford, hopefully you and Jackie can join us sometime. Absolutely. We appreciate you, Mr. Eric. You like I said, inbox us, let us know date and times, is no problem. Absolutely. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, the contact's cool. Like I said, inboxes will definitely be ready to take care of business. And like I said, and feel free, we'll share different things and elaborate on different causes. Okay. He said he's in New York.
Okay.
New York. Okay.
You're in Philly, I'm in Michigan. We can make it happen.
Here we go. City. This thing can go worldwide. We can get people from Africa too. We can go to Asia. We can go to Australia. You know what I mean? We can go all around. We can go, so let's get it. I feel free, feel confident in it. Miss Jackie, we're now on down to our final minute.
Yeah.
But if there's anything you want to say, anybody want to shout out
I
before
want
we
to.
put this live down?
First of all I want to really say is this is tough work. We're kind of joking and laughing, but this is serious business. We're talking about people's lives, but it can be easier if we work together, and there's hope. Connect with people like Keenan and I and all the great people in the comments, and we can do good stuff. Keenan, thank you so much for having me. I just hanging out
Oh,
with
thank
you.
you for having me. Thank you for coming up with a great idea for us to elaborate again. Thank y'all for coming out. It's ending, for the 8 o'clock. Again, the Unspoken Truth and Life Story. Feel free to go in KeenanHudson.com. Go pick up your book today. And we're out of here, okay? Peace. Have a good night. Thank y'all. About to end this broadcast. Peace.
See you, Keenan.
See ya.